On Tuesday, September 13th, 2005, a show would debut. A show that blended horror, action, comedy, drama, and everything else in between, with a simple premise about two brothers driven through horror and tragedy, coming together, traveling the country, and fighting monsters for us. That show is now coming to a close. After 15 years, it has gone through 2 networks, 3 presidencies, and is, in my opinion, the greatest horror action show of all time.
Did you know people tell stories about us?
Yeah, apparently we're a little bit legendary.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Once I rose above the noise and confusion, just to get a glimpse beyond this illusion. I was soaring ever higher, but I flew too high. Though my eyes could see, I still was a blind man. Though my mind could think, I still was a madman. I hear the voices when I'm dreaming. I can hear them say, carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. No! Carry on. You will always remember. Carry on. Make it equal the splendor. Now your life's no longer empty. Surely heaven waits for you. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more.
Not only do I love this show, I have rewatched every season repeatedly. I am a huge fan of different characters, different aspects, storylines, monsters. Everything that I can want in a fictional series is in this show. It does not hold back on the gore. It does not hold back on the action, drama, or comedy. And that's what I love the most about it. It pushes the envelope of what you could possibly show on basic TV. It's so intertwined with pop culture that most people, when they hear the song Carry On My Wayward Son by Kansas, they immediately think of this show. And seeing as this is the final run on the road so far, I figure we might as well celebrate this show in all of its amazing glory. But how do we celebrate a show that's this long in the run? It has existed for 15 years. 15 years is a lot of content to go through. So how do we do this? Well, I thought about it, and I felt the best way to approach it as if it is for both new and old fans. Now, I will say before we get into this list, it's best to everyone who's never seen Supernatural to at the very least see the first episode. That way you kind of get an idea of what this show is about. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fair, but at least you gave it an opportunity. Because the pilot episode pretty much sums up how the show is going to progress, and the multiple side turns up and down, apocalyptic things, and multiple different things that come your way are just so much to envelop in. So I would recommend watching episode 1, pausing here, and coming back to read this list. So what I decided to do was I took one episode per season that is simultaneously standalone amazing, great for old-time fans, and amazing for new-time fans. So that's what I decided to do. I did put a little of my personal bias in there, I will admit that. I decided to do this list so that way I can experience my love of Supernatural with you, and you can enjoy it with me. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. These are the top 14 Supernatural standalone episodes. Number 14. Beyond the Mat, Season 11, Episode 15. After one of their favorite wrestlers apparently commits suicide, Sam and Dean go to pay their respects, only for a man at the Memorial Wrestling Show to get murdered, with a strange symbol etched into his body. The two quickly figure out they are dealing with a demon who's collecting souls, but find that none of the wrestlers are possessed. Now, I will admit I put this episode in more of a bias towards me because, well, I'm a wrestling fan. And seeing Mike Mizanin, aka The Miz, and several other wrestlers sprinkled throughout this episode just kind of gives me joy. It makes me feel a connection between the Winchesters and me. The big bad, of course, being revealed to be a Crossroads demon, which at this point in the series is a little more kind of downplayed than really everything else, considering everything that led up to it. Hence why it's at the very bottom of the list. As I said, the main reason I put this on my list, I love seeing the Winchesters just hanging out and being brothers and being interested in something that they used to enjoy as children. It's those few humanistic elements that they put into the show that make you feel like you're connected to them with their interests. Number 13. The One You've Been Waiting For. Season 12, Episode 5. In Columbus, Ohio, an elderly woman attempts to buy an antique pocket watch, only to be murdered along with the owner of the antique store by the Thule Society, an organization of Nazi necromancers, previously introduced in Season 8. The murders draw the attention of the Winchesters, who learn from a young Thule member named Christoph that the watch holds the soul of Adolf Hitler, and the Thule intend to use his descendant Ellie to resurrect him. I mean, what can you not love about the idea of Nazi necromancers getting their ass kicks? I mean, it's Nazi necromancers trying to bring back Hitler. Come on, that alone should entice you to want to watch this show. Just the concept alone is so ridiculous but so intriguing at the same time. But it's not overplayed in a goofy kind of way. It's done in a way that makes it so interesting and makes you want to watch it more and go like, wait, what's gonna happen? And that enticement just grabs you and gets its hooks into you. And it has one of the most famous quotes in the show that everyone uses in the Supernatural community. But I will not spoil for you, because it makes it that much funnier in the long run. Number 12. Huntery Heroicy, Season 8, Episode 8. Sam, Dean, and Castiel, their angel friend who became a full-time hunter at this point, investigate a string of deaths in Oklahoma City that appeared to have been inspired by cartoons. A man's heart literally bursts out of his chest when he sees a woman he likes. A man hovers in midair for a moment while jumping off a building. And an anvil crushes a security guard to death. What is causing these cartoon shenanigans? Why is it affecting the real world? And could it have something to do with an old friend of theirs? Now, the reason I put this kind of lower at the list isn't because it's a bad episode. Far from it. It's fun, dark, edgy, best parts about Supernatural. The reason I put it lower at the list is mostly because there's a couple of plot details that you kind of have to know what's going on just a little bit, but it doesn't sway away from what happened because each episode has a recap of the season. So I really do enjoy the effects and practicality that they do of what would happen if cartoon logic worked in the real world and why it can't work in the real world. And also, it touches on a subject I never really thought about in the Supernatural universe, which is what would happen if you had some sort of significant powers and you also suffered from a disease or a thing that would affect those powers? How would those powers reflect? It's kind of similar to what happened in the movie Logan, and that's the only spoiler I'll give to that episode. Number 11. The Girl Next Door. Season 7, Episode 3. After being sprung from Sioux Falls General Hospital by a perfectly alive Bobby, Dean and Sam join him and lay low for 3 weeks while Dean's broken leg heals. In that time, Sam has still suffered hallucinations, but has kept quiet about them. While collecting food, Sam discovers the return of an unknown serial killer and takes off in his own way to find her and the truth. The killer is a monster, but not just any monster, a monster that he knows. It was a monster that he had a crush on as a child. This is such a good episode because it actually delves into a thing that Supernatural handles in not a heavy-fisted way. The show, in a lot of essences, comes down to what is right and what is wrong. But then there are situations like this episode, where it's not that it's right and wrong. There's a lot of shades of gray in between. Yes, this person is a monster, but at the same time, she's also a monster who is barely just able to survive and is trying her best to just get away and not harm anyone unless it's absolutely necessary. And I can see Sam's point of view, but I can also see Dean's point of view. There's no wholly right answer, and there's no wholly wrong answer. And I think a lot of the ramifications of this episode do resonate later as the series progresses, because some significant things happen in this episode that just seems like a throwaway that do crop up later in the series. And these questions never really fully get answered except by you, the audience. Number 10. Rock and a Hard Place. Season 9, Episode 8. Suspecting that the mysterious disappearance she is investigating in Hartford, South Dakota are linked to the supernatural, Sheriff Jody Mills, a reoccurring hunter character in the series, calls Sam and Dean to help her find these mysterious disappearances she's investigating in South Dakota. Sam and Dean realize that the victims all belong to the same church chastity group, go undercover as new members to continue the investigation. Dean discovers that the group counselor, Susie Lee, is one of his favorite porn stars. Unhappy with her old life, she quit the porn industry and turned over a new leaf. Dean is trying to woo this porn star he likes. Sam and Jody are on the hunt for what this creature is, and why this thing is happening to these people specifically. What I like about this episode is it plays more on the comedy side and balances the drama just enough to where it's not heavy-handed, but it's not overly goofy. Also, just seeing Sam and Dean try to blend into just normal people is always a laugh, especially when it's church people, because they are clearly not religious with all of the stuff they've gone through up to this point. Plus, I love seeing Sheriff Jody Mills because I always thought that she should have gotten a spin-off. And there were talks in the works of her getting one with her two friends that are also hunters, and I would have liked to seen that kind of show. But at the same time, getting to see them all balance each other out right, and seeing someone who went from kind of just an average sheriff to this really badass hunter, just like Sam and Dean, is such a cool natural progression for her character, and it's not heavy-handed. And the revelation of what the creature is really did kind of throw me for a loop when I first saw it. I was like, wait a minute, what? Number 9. Fan Fiction, aka Supernatural the Musical. Season 10, Episode 5. Still fixed on going out on hunts, Dean insists that he and Sam look into the disappearance of a teacher in Flint, Michigan. They are shocked to discover that the school musical that the teacher was planning to shut down is based on the books about their lives. Sam and Dean realize the only way to stop this creature from attacking these kids is to not only go along with the musical, but to help keep it going. You know I had to put this one on the list. Everyone that's a Supernatural fan has seen this episode. It is hilarious. It is fun. It is the only show that I can think of where they poke fun at the fans, at the characters, and at a whole nother show all at the same time, off the top of my head. But the only downside was I kind of wish I could have seen Sam and Dean singing. You don't really get to see that. Other than that, it really did have a lot of really good points. And the reason I put it so high on the list is there are plot elements that they basically explain to you, the audience, as if this is a play where you're getting to introduce the characters. And the music is really good. The singing of all of the girls in the songs, the plot-driven narrative, the funny interactions between Sam, Dean, and the cast is hilarious. And I just love it because it really is a love letter to the fans in every way. I probably will rewatch this episode once the series wraps up to a close, and I might get a little teary-eyed looking back at the ending. And I feel that it really does sum up what it means to be a fan. And rewatching it, you find little Easter eggs throughout, sprinkling in the show. Like, a lot of the audience members are executive producers. I believe Eric Kripke's in the audience, and he's the creator of Supernatural. There's so many little Easter eggs and little fun little notes that they put in the show that just make it so fun to watch that episode specifically for fans. Number 8. Frontierland. Season 6, Episode 18. Bobby discovers the ashes from a phoenix can kill Eve, the mother of all creatures. And Dean finds Samuel Colt's diary where he claims to have killed a phoenix in Sunrise, Wyoming in 1861. They call Castiel to see that he could send them back in time. Before transporting them through time, Castiel explains the risks of sending them so far back that they will only have 24 hours. And if they're there any longer, he may not be able to bring them back. What I love so much about this episode is, well, it's the Winchesters in the Old West. But it's not done in this kind of hokey, goofy kind of way. It really feels gritty and like an actual Western. And it's fun to see kind of Sam be this macho guy normally, really reduced to just a guy. And it's really cool seeing the whole cowboy Western aspect brought into Supernatural. And for, I believe, the first time, getting to actually see what Samuel Colt looked like. And seeing him use the Colt, which was, well, the gun that could pretty much kill anything. I just think it's really interesting to just see this kind of new storytelling of Supernatural. Sure, time travel stories are kind of overplayed and overdone, but this isn't done in a way that makes it feel heavy-handed. It makes it feel more fresh and interesting. I mean, how many other shows can you say an angel grabbed these two main characters, put them back in time, so that way they could kill a phoenix with a gun? That sentence alone shouldn't even be possible. But Supernatural made it possible, and that's one of the reasons it's so damn good. This episode was just too big to put into one part, so I had to split it into 2 parts. If you want to see which episodes I picked 7 through 1, come back next time and we'll see it together.